Hello everybody, this is Frank Norris from the Frank and Stan chat. As you can see, it's not just Frank and Stan this week. We've got two guests with us and we'll allow them an opportunity to introduce themselves in a few minutes. So yeah, this is the 27th edition of the Frank and Stan chat, and we've always tried to get into the digital technology field. I think we've had two previous episodes where we've covered that topic, and I think we're going to venture down that road again today. So let me first of all introduce my good friend Stan Johnson. Good morning, Stan.
Hi, welcome everyone.
Yeah, hello. And what we'll do is we'll introduce Joe Morfee. Joe, hello. Thank you for joining us. Can you just explain who you are, Joe? You know, perhaps why you're here, and you know, what sort of excites you in life in terms of digital work?
Yeah, I'm Jo Morfee. I'm the co-founder at InnovateHer. I'm here because Frank roped me into it.
We're all here for that reason.
He's a very persuasive man. InnovateHer, I mean, I'll probably talk about this in more detail shortly, is that right, Frank? But in a nutshell, we are getting girls ready for industry and industry ready for girls, particularly in terms of equipping them with digital skills, confidence and self-belief. We've been doing this for about 5 years now, and we've worked with a lot of girls and their parents and schools across the Northwest. So that really excites me. It's my passion. When I started InnovateHer with my co-founder Chelsea, I recognised that I'd finally found my calling in life. It's my purpose.
Oh wow!
I'm obviously, you know, I spent years fumbling around in different jobs, mostly in digital and tech, but nothing really made my heart sing like the work that we're doing now. So I'm one of those very lucky people that has found their passion in life, and also is able to make a difference through their work. You know, we're doing is directing and helping young women to go into an industry that's always been male dominated, and we're trying to address that.
Brilliant. And Nick, hello. So can you go and tell us your story. Who are you?
So I'm Nicola Webb. I work for the Co-op Academies Trust and I have done for 2 years. So my role currently is Management Business Support Officer. So I help organise events for students at InnovateHer, and I am the CEO's PA. So I started 2 years ago, and I used to work in Tesco as a checkout manager for 10 years.
It's really weird because I was actually responsible for Nick joining, and what was really interesting was to see straight away the amazing potential that Nick had, and found herself, I think, in a job that you thought was going to be okay for you, but it's slightly, I hope you found it in the same way that Joe's found it. You know, you've got a better job that sort of makes a bigger difference to...
Absolutely. Yeah, so obviously when I was a checkout, my main goal was for people not to queue at a checkout, which, what kind of, you know, it's not really a life-changing purpose. But obviously now, with how the trust is growing, we're reaching so many more children and offering them opportunities that they wouldn't necessarily normally have. And it's really nice to see, and being able to speak to the students and get their view on it is amazing. I love it.
And of course, you two, Joe and Nicola, have been working on a project together, hence the reason why we've brought them in today. Stan, what's caught your eye this week?
Yeah, I think I'm looking to find the job that I've always wanted to do. Is it too late at 64?
Never too late, Stan. Never too. This could be it.
Retirement might be the one. What this week? Well, there are two competing things. One is Marcus Rashford and his campaign and his million signatures is incredible, and to score a hat-trick in a European game on the same, it's like everything you've ever dreamed of as a child. That's it. And I just wonder now, is that his peak? Is that at whatever he is, 21, 22, is that the top of his tree? And the other thing was something about predictable outcomes. And I think if someone was sad enough to trawl through several of these, they would find some time ago Frank and I saying, if Ofsted inspectors go in to schools during this time, what happens if one of them is positive? And now we know what answer is. It's that the schools had to close. And they're doing something that's just not necessary.
Yeah.
It's not necessary to go into a school to find out the information that they're trying to find out. It can all be done over the internet. Absolutely mad.
Whoever risk assessed that needs their head exam.
I'd love to see the risk assessed.
If Frankenstein can work it out, I tell you what, that's just a pretty low bar.
I suspect it's being rewritten as we speak.
Joe, what about you? Anything caught your eye this week?
Yes, I want to give a shout out to Hira Hussain. I don't know if you know Hira, Frank, you may do. Hira and I met in Federation Manchester, which is a co-op supported co-working space for ethical businesses. Hira founded a charity called Chine, which supports women who are experiencing domestic abuse. It's a volunteer-led network. It's global. It's so much needed right now because, unfortunately, domestic abuse has increased during the pandemic. And something that caught my eye this week was her week notes. So she writes a weekly blog on Medium. And this week she wrote a searingly honest take on what it's like to be a female leading a small charity or social enterprise at this time, with all the stuff that's going on and the things that you encounter. And I'd really encourage anybody to look it up and read Hira's week notes, and also just check out Chine because they're an amazing charity doing brilliant work.
If you give us the link to that, Joe, we'll put it on at the end of this little video, so people can chase it up if they want to.
Of course, yeah, I will do.
Nick, what about you? What's caught your eye this week?
Frustrating it is buying a house. No one answers any emails or phone calls when you want to know what's going on.
It does happen. It will happen because the people opposite us at the moment have got a big removal van in front of them, and it's a really sad day because they've been there for about 12 years and they're moving today.
Oh.
It was all touch and go up to last night as to whether or not there's actually agreed it all. So how close are you then to moving?
No idea, because literally no one is answering any phone call.
Well, what's caught my eye this week? I met a guy called, I zoomed in with a guy called Dave Smith. People will know him. And Dave recently retired, I think, for about the 5th time from being a bit of a sort of co-op journalist hack. And he has started, believe it or not, Nick, a podcast with another guy called Chris Smith. Yeah, I know.
Wow. So has he actually left the co-op, like, officially?
He only left a couple of days ago, but I'm sure he's going to get another call. This is a podcast talks about, and it sounds really dull, but it took me back to my youth. It talks about people who worked in the co-op bank, sort of 40 years ago, and the sorts of things that used to go on in those days. And it reminded me, I worked in a bank before I started teaching, and it was just a small little branch, and there was a big bank opposite. And of course, in those days, nobody delivered money to your bank. You basically had to go to another bank and get it. So actually, in my first week, I was given a sort of satchel, and I was told to go to Barclays, which was across the road. And so I went across the road, and they put something like £200,000 into this satchel. And I remember it now, they used to put a little white cloth over the top of it. And I then trucked across the road with £200,000 in my satchel. And that was how, and if we had too much money, we would send Barclays the excess money that we had, and you'd have the little satchel brigade. And it just sort of, and they talk about, Chris Smith, Dave Smith talk about similar sorts of episodes that used to happen in the co-op bank. But again, for that, I'll share, it sounds really dull, but I have to say it's really, really funny. And I'll send the link at the end of this video as well for that podcast. So, but
can I just say that giving money to Frank to put into a wallet is the safest place to ever put money. Because you've
That
never
is
seen him open
so harsh. I mean, this story is, I've known him since 1995, and this story has gone on ever since then. But Stan and other colleagues just love telling it. They love telling it. Anyway, but obviously I don't think it's true, but everybody else that I know probably does think it's true. Anyway. But that's not why we're here, all right? So we've got 10 minutes of this already. We've not actually spoken about what we're going to talk about. So Joe and Nicola, you've been involved in a project which is trying to enable girls to actually get involved in the tech industry. So I'd like to give you a bit of a platform now, just to tell us, what you've been doing. So should we start with Joe, Nick? Is that probably the best?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joe, can you just explain, that involvement and what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, sure. So way back in 2016, when we were actually called Liverpool Girl Geeks, before InnovateHer was a concept, we contacted a chap called Mike Bracken, who some of you may know. Amazing man.
I think people that are not in the tech world, I think the story goes that he was basically responsible, wasn't he, for the .gov.uk platform, the government platform. So
yeah.
And actually Mike Bracken is an international tech figure. So if you're not in the fields, then you really do need to understand, how important or how senior that person is, influential.
Yeah, he's an incredible man. And we just sent him a deck over Twitter. And we said, look, we've got an idea that we want to work with teenage girls to address the gender imbalance in the industry. And we think we should do this through education. And we think we should deliver it with industry role models, because that's really powerful. And we had all these concepts, and he just straight away said, yes, I'm backing that. He could see the potential in it. So that's how we started working with the co-op, through Twitter and through Mike. Wow. The power of social media. And we then applied for some funding from the Rosa Fund for Women, which was actually drawn down from the tampon tax. So it's good to know that that's actually used for some good work. And that enabled us to run 4 pilots in Liverpool city centre, reaching about 60 students in the first instance. And we had co-op role models that came in and worked with the girls, and it had so much impact. Parents were telling us that the girls were just really inspired, and that they'd noticed that their confidence had grown over the 8 weeks with us, as well as them learning some of the technical skills. And what we began to recognise was that we were not only addressing the fact that these skills aren't really taught extensively in schools, but we were addressing the lack of positive encouragement and the lack of awareness of the careers that there are in technology. Because careers in tech, they advance at the speed of light. There's jobs that we can't even imagine will exist in a couple of years' time.
So just to say, Joe, that I think, Stan, that's the issue, trying to bring people in here as well, is that's, I think, why the pedagogy is so important in terms of how children are learning. And there's this great push, isn't there, on knowledge. Yeah. It's as if knowledge is everything at the moment. It will pass. I'm sure it will pass.
all things pass.
All things pass. But pedagogy of how children learn and the way in which they do that, actually, it does fit you. It's really important in terms of the way that the digital world is currently working. Not to say that will continue forever, but actually, I can actually see problems in some schools, with schools trying to develop a commitment to digital, but actually can't see that the way that they're teaching the children is actually not giving them some of those skills and the way of working that they'll need in order to work successfully in digital. So I think that for me is where the teaching bit of it comes in for you, Joe, and that, I think there's more that we need to do in the school side. And Nick, you might be able to talk about that in a minute, because you might actually have seen that yourself, just the way that people are. But Joe, I cut you off there. So do you want to finish?
Yeah, I'll just finish the story and bringing us up to where we are today. So after we'd done the pilots, we decided to take the programme into schools. And the reason for that was because we were seeing that the students who were attending were not necessarily diverse. So they were students whose parents could drop them off and pick them up, who potentially had that supportive framework, or maybe even parents that worked in tech already. So we wanted to reach a broader range of girls across different backgrounds and identities, and specifically we were passionate about working in disadvantaged areas and communities. And so that's what we did next, and the co-op was a massive enabler for that, because obviously the co-op has academy schools across the Northwest. And so we started working, one of the first schools that we worked in was a co-op academy in Manchester. And we used co-op role models to help us enable that as well. So we were working very closely, I think this was about 2018. And since then, we've worked with several academies actually, including Manchester, North Manchester, Failsworth, Swinton, Walkden. We've really kind of been all over Manchester with co-op behind it. And Nicola's been amazing in helping us make that happen on the ground as well. She's really instrumental to that. And we've had a number of people, Mike Bracken obviously left the co-op a couple of years ago, but we've had a number of people then, like yourself, Frank, who've picked it up and run with it and can really see the value in it. And I'll just read you a couple of the quotes before I finish my overview. But one of the teachers in the academy said, "It was lovely to see the confidence grow in our female pupils and watch them engage with the programme." And that's a key part, is that we aren't just showcasing careers and skills, but that we are building self-belief and putting positive role models in front of the girls too. And one of the students said, "My favourite part was learning code and making new friends." So they get a lot out of working with like-minded girls and students over the period that we're in the school. Quite often geeks can be introverted, or they can be like quite lonely characters, so it's really important for them to meet other like-minded students through the programme. And now that we've gone virtual, even more so, because they can connect with students all over the UK. So that's really powerful. Which brings me on to the next point, really. Obviously, the pandemic hit this year, and we had been delivering our work in a face-to-face, more traditional way in schools, I suppose, in a physical environment. And we had in our 3-year business plan that we would be an e-learning provider. And we had to do it in 3 weeks in April. So we launched a portal very quickly. It's very basic, but it just houses all of our resources. And we figured out how we could still make an impact by asking industry role models to host sessions online for the students. And we're about to, Nicola and I are working closely at the moment on a project to kick that off in 5 co-op academies for up to 100 students online. So it's all very exciting, and we're really looking forward to the next phase and becoming a fully fledged e-learning provider, basically, in line with the times. Brilliant. So I think is that a good overview?
That's great. That's really helpful. I mean, Nick, in terms of the work you've done, I think I think when I think of you in this project, I think of your commitment to ensuring that the right children get the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done a bit of a piece of work in terms of making sure when we're sending the packs out to the schools and everything, we're making sure we're identifying the right students. So obviously the pupils who don't get opportunities, the outside of school, whatnot, but then the girls who are, they might be really, really clever, but so shy, and they need something that gets them out of it, or the teacher has identified that they've got these special skills, but they don't believe in themselves. So it's the teacher then identifying them to say, actually, you'd be amazing at this. Are you interested in this project? And it's all about building up the girls' self-belief and the confidence, and obviously learning the new skills, but they need to be ready for the big wide world as well. Yeah. So obviously the two things really do link.
Yeah. So I think for me the interesting thing is I think there are everybody I've spoken to about this sort of work, they go, see educationalists stand, they all go, yeah, this is really important. But actually, I think there is a bit of a gap between what senior leaders in schools see as a tech career and what I see and what I've managed to see through the work I've done with you, Joe, and through my son, how broad those careers are. And I think when there are senior leaders tend to think it's probably the examination process which tends to take you through the computer sciences and into coding, stuff like that. But it's a more creative environment than that. That is obviously important, but that's one small element, isn't it, of the careers that are available to people out there.
Yeah. Typically, what proportion of students do you work with in a single academy? What kind of numbers?
So when
I think we've lost Joe.
from year 8 usually.
So that again, Joe, we just lost you for about 10 seconds.
Oh really? Sorry about that.
It's all right.
We tend to work with 20 students per academy initially, because we have a ratio of 1 to 10 with the industry mentors to the students. So we send in 2 mentors and they work with them really closely for 8 weeks. And the reason we keep the numbers low is because we want it to be quite a high quality and impactful intervention. But having said that, now we're going virtual, we can work with a lot more students in an online environment because some of the content is pre-recorded and some of it's live. So we'll be able to work with up to 100 students at a time, I think, which is quite exciting.
But does that hit the problem that Frank and I are always going on about, and that's maybe the most needy students don't have that IT provision at home or away from the academy?
Yes.
You've got an answer to this, haven't you, I think, because you're very aware of this. I think both of you, Joe and Nicola, are aware of this problem.
Yeah, well, from our perspective, we partnered with the Prince's Trust this year to provide devices and dongles for students that are attending our programme that don't have them at home.
Right.
So we look at students that are on pupil premium specifically, and we ask them when they apply to be on the programme if they have a device and access to Wi-Fi, and if they don't, we refer them to the Prince's Trust. Although, as I understand it, schools do have an obligation to provide devices. Is that right, Nicola?
Well, we provided a lot of our, I don't know the exact number, but we've sent out Chromebooks and other various devices, you know, to enable them to learn at home. And the PFE have started up a scheme as well. So if the school is eligible and has a high number of pupil premium students, they can apply for devices as well that the students can send home.
So the problem here, isn't it, Stan? Go on, you say it.
Well, they've just reduced it by what percentage? 80%, was it?
Yeah, yeah. That's another. We could have had that as what's caught your eye this week. You know, there is a problem, isn't there, when government over-promise and under-deliver. You know.
Yeah, especially when they drag it all back on the Friday just before half term when they cut it. So that maybe time to respond.
It's a really big issue, and one that we feel quite passionately about, because we've spoken, for example, to a family that's got one smartphone device between 10 of them, and all of the kids are trying to learn from that one device, and they're waiting for the parents to come home in the evening with the device so that they can do the schoolwork. I mean, it's really sad, and it's going to put a lot of people into more of a disadvantage. I mean, there's a stat here that I've got, actually. Have you read the Edge produced a really good report on education during COVID-19? It's full of stats, but they were saying that 34% of parents with children 5 to 16 do not have access to a computer or a device, and that children from better off households will spend 30% more time every day on their studies than children from the poorest fifth of households. And obviously up here in the north, we have a big issue with deprivation and child poverty more than most areas in the south. So it does impact, I feel, on the north in a bigger way, and some of the policy and decisions that are being made at the moment feel very London-centric to me.
Absolutely.
Well, that's been a theme, isn't it, Stan?
Yeah. We said we'd never run out of things to say, but we started repeating ourselves now.
Have you faced, has it been a problem? I mean, even though you've had, I mean, the co-op have stepped up really well, haven't they? The Trust and the co-op to try and address this.
They've even done like 4G dongles, you know, so the ones who do have like laptops or computers but don't have Wi-Fi, or high speed, you know, so it's been amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I mean, I think where's it all going to end then, Joe? What's the ambition then of all of this?
For
Where
InnovateHer,
are we going to be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? What are we going to find? So, yeah, she might be back now. Joe, are you back with us?
so we want to. Am I still here? Have I got a good signal?
You are still here. You carry on, Joe. I asked you where are we going to be in 10 years' time?
Yeah, I think that the ambition for us is to become a leading virtual training provider for girls and non-binary students. So we aspire to develop our platform further. We're looking for partners to help us with that. We're going to have themed courses, which we already have in schools, but now we're making them virtual. So we'll have gaming and tech for good and cyber skills. And our ambition is really to provide really high quality content and continue to support schools in plugging some of those gaps around digital skills and careers awareness.
Joe, Nick, what would you like it to be then, 10 years from now, for those academies that you support?
Hopefully to be able to run it in all of our academies, but with it being virtual, it doesn't have to be. So, you know, they can choose to do it. So I want to be able to offer students, this is like a bit of a booklet to say, actually, I want to take part in that. And then there's funding available for those students who do want to take part. So it's not, maybe you have 5 students per academy, but the 5 students who really, really want to take part.
Yeah. I think
available to all.
The thing for me is we've got to make sure that when they leave the secondary schools, whether they're club academies or not, that there is a pathway, which at the moment, I cannot quite see that pathway as clearly as I would like it to be, for girls to be able to come from that experience, InnovateHer experience, the good experience in secondary school, into post-16 and then into a career in digital. You know, there feels to me at the moment a few hurdles to overcome. It's not a sort of straight path through, is it?
I think that's the opportunity though with going virtual and having a platform, because our ambition is to showcase apprenticeships and traineeships and opportunities, and that girls will join us, say, at 13 and stay with us as have an account with us, if you like, on that platform until they turn 18 and go into industry. So it will enable us to track those journeys better and showcase opportunities from our partner community within that platform a lot more readily and easily than we can do now.
Great. Well, what we'll do for those watching, we'll put a link to InnovateHer website at the end of this video. So if you're interested, you can make contact with Joe and Chelsea. Thank Nicola and Joe for joining.
Thank you both.
This week. It's really interesting. It's fantastic what you're doing. I think also the way that you've focused in on those that haven't got much, that do need that extra support. I think it's great that you've got this opportunity, Joe and Nicola, to make such a difference to those who need it most. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll be back next week. We're still looking at when that date might be when Andy Hargreaves might join us. It might be next week, who knows?
Yeah, we don't know.
No. But anyway, we'll see you all in 7 days' time, all being well.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's fine.
Hey.
Thank you.